Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Lowry Crafts. It has been a little while, not too long since my last video, although we are now very much in what I would say is the start of summer, although I guess that depends on how you divide the year up. But I thought I would talk to you about my warmer weather / summer knitting plans. Slightly ironic today, to be honest, given the weather outside. It is very grey and overcast here. In fact, it's been raining most of the week, which is quite miserable. We did have a bit of a heat wave in May, but that heat has now left us and we are back to the usual British overcast, mid-teens summer weather. But one can dream. So that's what we're going to do. Potentially controversially, I really enjoy summer knitting. I enjoy winter knitting as well, but I really enjoy summer knitting. I think it's something about summer projects kind of being a bit quicker to knit, so you get that finished object high much quicker, motivates you on to the next thing. And I also just really enjoy working with summer blends as well, and knitting things without sleeves is always a bit of a win. So I'm going to talk you through the things that I intend to knit this summer. Now, in the spirit of knitting slightly ahead of season, which was one of the things that I wanted to do a bit more of this year, I have actually already started my summer projects, and I finished one top maybe last month, was it? I think it was the beginning of last month. I finished my self-drafted peplum top, which I knitted in Sandnes Garn Line, and was based off a design that I put together a couple of years ago, and it didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to, so I reworked that pattern and knitted this new top up, and I'm really enjoying that at the moment. I'll put some pictures or video footage or whatever, B-roll, on the screen while I'm talking about it. But if you want to see the process of me knitting that top, you can watch my previous video, which was about how I made that. My first foray into self-drafting. I was really pleased with it. The only thing I would say now that I've been wearing it for maybe a month, and I've got more wear out of it, is that kind of linen blend yarn. So I use Sandnes Garn Line, and that is a linen cotton viscose blend. It does stretch over time, and you can kind of get a little bit of it back by putting it in the washing machine, but it never really goes back to kind of that finished dimension, I think. And I would say the body has stretched out just a little bit more than I would have liked. It's not really noticeable, it's still perfectly wearable, but I think in hindsight, if I was to knit the pattern again, I would maybe do slightly less length on the body before I get to the ribbing around the waist. And I could go in and fix that quite easily if I wanted to. But it's not a huge issue, but it's just something that I've kind of reflected on, and now that I've had time to wear the top more often, so that is something I would do. But other than that, it's been a really, really good kind of early summer, late spring knit for me to wear. And Sandnes Garn Line is one of my absolute favourite yarns. It's such a good summer blend. The blend between cotton and linen and viscose means that it's quite a light yarn. It's not really heavy like 100% cotton yarn can be. It's DK weight, so I knitted that peplum top on a 3.5mm needle, but it can also be worked on a 4mm needle to get kind of a slightly more open, sort of less stiff gauge, I guess. And it's just a really fantastic summer yarn to work with. So I have some more Sandnes Garn Line. This is the first summer plan that is already a work in progress that I'm going to share with you. This is Sandnes Garn Line in the colour, let's see, 6061. It's kind of a dark blue, it's not navy though, but it's kind of a dark blue leaning colour. I'll show you that there. So that's the colour that I'm working with at the moment, and I am making the Cloud Top by PetiteKnit, but with some modifications. So I'll hold this up so you can see that I've done the back panel, I've done the back yoke, and then I've picked up on the front shoulders. The Cloud Top by PetiteKnit I have knitted once before in a brown, I think it was a merino cotton 50-50 blend. Yes, it was. That I bought in Spain actually, and it was one of my early knits. It's a really good top. The only thing is I did a bit of a funny join here across the neck where I was changing yarns, and it just looks really, you can see it, it's really obvious. I could potentially go in and try and fix it, I reckon, but that does put me off wearing it a little bit. But I really like the pattern a lot. I have been seeing a lot of knits on Instagram that are kind of like sleeveless tops, maybe with a bit of a mock neck and then a kind of buttons down the front, and they're often kind of like mismatched buttons, and it's really cool and I really love that look. So I wanted to take inspiration from that, but I didn't want to buy a new pattern for a top that effectively I kind of already had a pattern for. I think it's quite easy to modify the Cloud Top to just kind of have the split down the middle, just to not join in the rounds. That's what I decided to do. I also thought a lot of the patterns that I saw had very high necks, and although I really like the look, it's not something that I would want for kind of day-to-day wear, because I think it would irritate me a bit. Maybe for more of like a dressy evening look, but I don't think I'd be going for the kind of scrappy, mismatched buttons, which is what I want to do. So I've got this lovely kind of muted darker blue, and I have followed essentially the instructions for the Cloud Top pattern, with the exception of I have reduced the number of increases for the armhole just by one repeat, because I know that the armholes can be a little deep. They're okay on my other top, but that top has 50% merino in the fibre, and I think with this having no animal fibre in it, it will probably stretch a bit and not kind of have that elasticity. So that's kind of currently the only change that I've made, and then obviously I've put this split down the middle. So I picked up the first shoulder, I followed all the instructions. At the point where it says to break the yarn and pick up the next shoulder, I actually cast on half of the stitches for the neck that you would cast on at the point where you were joining both pieces. So I just cast on half that number of stitches, and then I continued to follow the instructions for the length, with the decreases and now the increases for the left-hand side, just ignoring the instructions for the right-hand side. And it's been really straightforward so far. My plan, I think, is to keep the rolled hemlines on all the edges. And I think for the front, for the button bit, I considered kind of adding a couple of stitches on and just having this raw edge, but actually I do want something a little bit neater. I do want to pick up some stitches. So I think I am going to pick up on both sides and just knit a very short, not even 1 by 1 rib. I think I'm literally just going to knit stockinette for maybe 1 centimetre on each side, and then leave that rolling hem on the front bit. I haven't explained that very well. Hopefully in a podcast episode I'll be able to show you. But that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to add mismatched buttons on the front, and I'm very excited about that bit. I have a button shop near me called Duttons for Buttons, and they sell loads and loads of buttons. I like going in there and just looking at the buttons. But I think I'm going to go for kind of mid to dark tone browns, like tortoiseshells, browns, maybe a mix of cream. I might decide to mix one colour in there, like a burgundy or a pale yellow, but I'm not too sure yet. I think I might just stick to the brown. It might be too much to mix too much colour in there. But yeah, that's what I'm going for at the moment. I will have put some pictures up on the screen, or I'll do it now while I'm talking, of the kind of photos on Instagram that I have seen, but that's kind of the inspiration that I am taking. But I just thought I have a pattern that would work. There is no need to buy another pattern. I may as well use my own skills and my own brain cells to modify what I've got. So that is item number 1. It has really good drape already. I'm really pleased about it. Let's talk about some things that I want to cast on. So I have whittled this down quite a bit because as much as I love looking at knitting patterns, I'm not actually a very speedy knitter. I work a full-time job. I don't have lots of free time necessarily to knit. I've got plenty of time. I'm very happy with how much I produce, but I don't knit loads and loads of garments every year. So I wanted to try and be a little more realistic this year. So there are a couple of patterns that I would really like to knit before the end of August, when I am going on a weekend away to Copenhagen with one of my friends who is also a knitter, and I am so excited, and I would like to be able to wear one of these objects on that trip. That would be kind of fun. So I've got the first thing is the Som Cardigan by Cookie the Knitter. I have never knit any of this designer's patterns before. However, I was looking for a sort of suitable summer cardigan that I guess could also be used transitionally, could be worn kind of in the spring and the autumn as well, but that had maybe a bit of an eyelet pattern so that it kind of lets some airflow through, and that would look really lovely in a cream. So I'd kind of looked at my wardrobe and worked out that that was kind of a garment that was missing from my wardrobe, a kind of cream cardigan that I could wear over a lot of my summer clothes, or kind of transitionally into the autumn or from the spring. And I found this cardigan on Instagram, and I've had a look through some of the project photos, and I think this could be a winner. It is a DK weight cardigan. It has a drop shoulder construction, I think. It's worked top down, and it has an all over lace pattern, but it's not a sort of fiddly lace pattern. It's kind of a lace, an eyelet triangle pattern, I guess. And I would love to knit this. It's a kind of DK-ish gauge. It's maybe verging towards worsted a little bit. I think it's an 18 stitch gauge. Yeah. And I would love to knit this in the Knitting for Olive cotton merino, held double in the colour cream. Now, I have seen this colour in person, and if I hadn't, I wouldn't know that this colour suits me, because I look quite drained in creams that lean yellow, that have yellow undertones. And to me, that a cream has a yellow undertone. This colour, this yarn, is actually quite cool leaning, and that really threw me when I saw it in person, but actually I think this would work really, really well. It's on a 4.5mm needle, is that right? I think so. Yeah, by the looks of it. So it wouldn't be too much of a kind of slow summer knit. It's not a kind of small fiddly knit. And I think I would knit size 1, which would give me about 15 centimetres of positive ease. And I think the cardigan is designed to have sort of 10 to 20 centimetres of positive ease. So I'm sitting about right there. I would really like to have that pattern done, or that cardigan done, by the time I go to Copenhagen with my friend. Or alternatively, I would like to have done the Seashore skirt by Kutovakika. This is another designer that I have not knit from before, but I have heard very good things about her patterns, that they're very well written, very clear. She makes complex designs and techniques quite simple and seem quite easy and achievable. So I'm very excited to try this. I've obviously got a thing for lace this summer, because the Seashore skirt is also an all over lace skirt. It kind of has two main lace patterns. There's kind of one at the top and then one further down. It has a folded waistband, and there are instructions in the pattern, I believe, for the shorter length, so kind of above the knee length, and a kind of midi length, like a below the knee length. I haven't decided which length I would want to knit, and I keep going back and forth on it. I think I would want to go for a below the knee length, but not as long as the, so there's two samples that the designer has photos of in the Revelry listing. There's above the knee version and a that's like a light neutral colour, and then a below the knee one, the kind of midi length that's like a dark brown. I wouldn't want to make it as long as that one. I think I'm looking for something in between those two. That's what I'm leaning towards. I'm also not 100% sure on the yarn either. I want to use Drops Belle, I think. I went back and forth for a long time on whether I wanted to try Drops Belle because I'm not sure how ethical something that is produced that cheaply, that is sold that cheaply, can be. And I wasn't sure whether that was a compromise that I wanted to make. I think I would like to try using the yarn once. So I've had a look at the Drops Belle colours and I've narrowed it down to two. There's one that is number 36 and that's ruby red, and then there's one that I think I'm leaning towards more at the moment that is 40 and that's called Plum Wine. The first one's more of like a burgundy colour and then the second one is more like a plum purple colour, and I think those are both colours that would look great in the summer and would fill a gap in my wardrobe. I don't have any skirts in that kind of colour, in either of those colours, but also could quite easily be transitioned into autumn and winter as well and worn over heavy tights. So I'm quite excited about that. I really, really enjoy the repetition of lace, and kind of that, once you've got that chart in your head, kind of that repeated, just being able to kind of knit that repeated pattern, it kind of makes mindless knitting a little more enjoyable. So I would really, really like to get started on that. And I would like one of those things to be done by the time I go to Copenhagen, but we'll see. The last thing that I can imagine myself knitting is a second Sabai top by Susanne Müller. I knit the Sabai top last summer in a kind of dusty pale green colour from Sandnes Garn. It was Sandnes Garn Line, which I think is one of the yarns recommended in the pattern actually. And I previously knitted version number 1, which is the version of the top that has ribbing on it. It's a really popular top. It's a sleeveless kind of boat neck, DK weight, just quite basic summer top. There's two versions in the pattern. There's kind of one with ribbing and one without any ribbing. One that's just kind of plain stockinette, I guess, with the rolled edge along the neckline. I made the ribbing version already. I think I would like to make version number 2, which is the one without the ribbing, and I think I would actually make a different size as well. So previously I made size number 2, which I think gave me maybe 5 centimetres of positive ease. It gave me slightly more positive ease, and it does say in the pattern that you can kind of make it more fitted, or it also works with more positive ease, and that's what I went for. I think there would also be place in my wardrobe for something with kind of less positive ease, either 0 ease or slight negative ease, and I think I would like to give that a go. The other thing that I would do with this top, and this was a modification I made on the first one, but actually I will do it again on this version, but I will do it even more, if that makes sense, is I reduced the length of the top bit. I reduced the length of the armhole, the depth of the armhole, that's what I'm trying to say. The armholes on this top are pretty deep, and if you are going to knit it in something that hasn't got a animal fibre in it, it will stretch further and it's not particularly bra friendly. So I took a couple of rows off when I made my first version, and actually when I make the second one I think I'll take even more rows off because it's now it sits basically at my bra line, and if I move about it's not necessarily 100% bra friendly. It's not particularly revealing, but I would just prefer if it kind of wasn't as, the armhole wasn't as deep. So that is a version that I will make this summer, I reckon. And I think I will use Sandnes Garn Line. I realise this is quite a boring, these are quite boring yarn selections. I'm kind of sticking to what I know and what is familiar. So if anyone has any recommendations for other summer yarns, please let me know. I really want to find other plant fibre blends that are affordable and lightweight, and preferably that could go in a washing machine. That is the joy of Sandnes Garn Line, is it can just go in the washing machine. I cannot be hand washing my summer knits, that's crazy. But I think I would use either the light yellow colour, which is 2112, which I really love a bit of light yellow in my wardrobe. But I've also seen recently that PetiteKnit has used the rustic rose colourway for one of her recent designs. And I think on her body, it looks different to how it looks online. And I like the way it looks in her photos. That's colour 4353, so I might try that instead, we'll see. So those are the things that I can imagine myself knitting this summer. I wanted to give a couple of honourable mentions to patterns that I have seen online and that I really love and that I have favourited on Instagram, but that haven't been released yet, and I don't know if I will necessarily knit them this summer, but they are things that I just wanted to share with you because they have excited me. The first one is the Isabel top by the Knit Purl Girl, which is a fingering weight, lightweight summer top. It comes with 2 versions in the pattern by the looks of it, so it's in testing at the moment. And there's a version where you knit in the round in the kind of lace pattern, and then there is a version where it has buttons down the front. That seems to be the major difference between the 2 versions. Otherwise, it's kind of an all-over mixed lace pattern. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am quite excited by the thought of knitting a summer top on tiny needles. And that is not something I ever thought I would say, but I guess I'm getting to a point with my knitting where I'm quite happy to have something that I just keep working on and working on and working on for the process, less so for the product. I'm still getting that product satisfaction from other things, but I guess the drive to make new items and to have new things is becoming less, which is a good thing, I think. So that's one of the things I wanted to share. And then the other one, I have actually applied for the test knit, although I don't have any particularly strong belief that I will be selected, but I applied anyway because at the start of the year I said I didn't want to apply to test knits that had short deadlines. You know, I work a full-time job. Knitting a jumper in 8 weeks isn't actually always feasible, and I just don't think test knits should have short deadlines like that. And that might be controversial to say that 8 weeks is a short deadline, but I think it is for a lot of people. madebyrosh has recently put out the testing application for their Sideways sole top, I think is what it's called. And this is a really exciting pattern to me because it is sort of completely made to measure. So it's kind of a recipe rather than a graded pattern. I think it comes with, like some of her other tops do, I believe, it comes with like a maths formula that you put your numbers into, your measurements and your gauge, and then it tells you how many stitches you need for certain parts of the instructions. So that means you can essentially knit at whatever gauge you want, using whatever yarn you want, and whatever your measurements are, you're going to get a top that fits your body the way you want it to, which is very exciting to me. I have been interested in making more kind of date night or like dressy up tops, which is not something I have knit much of currently. And one of the samples that the designer has made for this top is a sleeveless, slightly off the shoulder version, which she styles I don't know if I'll be able to put a picture up because she kind of shows lots of different ways that she styles it in one reel. But at one point it's styled kind of on the shoulder with a bit of like a cowl neck on the front, or with one shoulder off, and it looks really cool. Her version is kind of quite fitted, but there's optional zips, there's optional buttons, there's optional ribbing, there's a long sleeve version that was the first sample that was made, I believe. So it just looks like a really, really cool design to have conceived of, and there are so many customizations, and I think that's a really fantastic way to make inclusive patterns. So if I am selected, I will be very, very excited, and I would love to kind of make this kind of more date night top. That would also be, I think, something that I would work on a fingering weight gauge like the Isabel top. I think that is, if I get round to it, if I'm selected, then that is something that I will knit at that kind of small gauge and will satisfy that itch to knit a fingering weight summer top. Oh, I should also say that I think if I knit this pattern, I will knit it in one strand of knitting for olive silk, probably. I think it would suit that really well. So that is everything that I wanted to share with you today. I have so many more patterns that I have saved on Instagram. I could talk about knitting patterns for forever and a day, but we are not going to do that. We are keeping it realistic, slightly more realistic this year. I will keep you updated with my progress on how I get along with these. If you want to see my progress more in real time, you can follow me on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is the same as this one, I think. It's Lowry Crafts, yes. Otherwise, I will update you on my progress in my next podcast episode. Please let me know what you are knitting at the moment and what your plans are for your summer knitting, or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, for your winter knitting, I guess. If you have any suggestions for summer yarns that I could try, I would really love those. I would like to be a little more adventurous than Sandnes Garn Line. And if you are playing Yarn Chicken at the moment, I hope you win. Bye everyone.